The river was the color of old coffee, and it moved like it had somewhere mean to be. 3 church folks rode it up, a pastor with too much hope, a nurse who knew better, and a young buck who hadn't learned when to listen to his bones. Their skiff coughed along the brown water toward a clearing that on the map had a name. Out here, names don't mean much, not unless something wears them. They tied off to a sun-whitened stump and walked the path the river had chewed into the clay. The jungle pressed in like a crowd that didn't care who you were. Air thick enough to drink. Dragonflies stitching blue thread in the heat. Somewhere back in the trees, something screamed one note and then went quiet, like it realized it had told the truth out loud. The village waited on stilts in silence. Palm thatch, cook pits, a dead fire ring, laundry hanging gentle in a wind that wasn't there. Pots black with soot. A child's blue flip-flop, only one turned on its side near a well. The kind of scene that says folks will be back in a minute, just stepped out. And every part of you knows better. They split without saying it. Pastor took 1 row, nurse another, the kid a third. It's funny how we pretend splitting is safety, like trouble's a wolf that only eats what it can see. The kid's ladder creaked under his boot, and the little house breathed fish and wood smoke, and something the body calls wrong, even if the brain's still searching for polite words. The bed was neat, the hammock tied. Cassava paste in a bowl turned to a plaster cast of yesterday. On the floor, where the broken light made prison bars, lay a dark bloom that wasn't dust and wasn't spilled tea, not sprayed, not dragged. A place where something had been, and then wasn't. They met at the well with empty hands and eyes that didn't want to say what they saw. Folks think fear is shaking and yelling. Most times it looks like manners. They found the first 2 bodies after noon. Back room, door pulled half shut like grief wanted privacy. A man and a girl, 9, maybe 10, laid careful on packed dirt, shirts rolled to the ribs, like they'd been waiting on a doctor. The doctor never came. The pastor made a sound that stayed with him. The nurse put a hand on the frame and gripped wood like it might float. The kid took a breath and found it didn't do a thing. Now, listen close. They weren't torn apart. No fight, no claw marks, no blood sprayed onto the walls like a story begging to be retold. Their bellies were wrong. The skin around each navel had been stretched and split like a mouth opening neat. Inside, the house was empty. Not chewed ragged, not hacked. Hollowed careful, like something had been working off a list and minding deadlines. One of them muttered a movie title, like making it fiction would help. It didn't. Stories end. This was a beginning. They kept finding them. Quiet, neat, the same wrong door pried open. Some rooms had hair-thin tunnels tracing from bed frames to floorboards, little dark seams running toward cracks and shadows, the way rain seeks the lowest ground. That's not termites, that's traffic. Dusk came heavy. They lit a cook fire because we're all braver when fire is telling us lies with its crackle. Crackers for dinner, water gone warm, heads on a swivel. They set watches because that's what people who want to live do. The nurse first, headlamp cut in the dark. The pastor second, straight-backed, stubborn as a fence post that's already been through 3 winters. Kid last, toward morning, when even the trees are tired of pretending they're not looking at you. The sting was a hot iron under the ear, quick and decisive as a borrowed sin, then nothing. That's how an expert says goodnight. The kid dropped first, lungs turned to water. The pastor went down a heartbeat after. Nurse, third. Not a scream among them. Light blew through leaves, then folded. Dirt tasted like ash. Somewhere in the falling, a thought drifted through the kid's mind like a leaf. Front door to the pantry. Then the dark did what the dark does. They woke with the sun acting like none of this was its business. Ants walked boot leather like they owned stock. Necks sore where the world had been signed by something with needle-fine handwriting. The nurse checked pupils, counted pulses, swallowed relief like a bad pill. No fever, no vomit, no proof of anything you could fix. Every bit of them wanted distance from that clearing. Sense finally won one. Downriver, the towns got louder. Sat dishes sprouting like metal weeds. Radios calling soccer games into the steam. They found a clinic and a doctor young enough to still believe people were puzzles that liked to be solved. He listened, lifted a polite hand when the story got jagged, and said the words that make professionals feel safe. Heat exhaustion, allergic reaction, dehydration. He gave them pain pills with labels nobody reads and told them to rest in the city. They took 3 rooms in a motel near a bus station that coughed to diesel at the street. Doors cracked, chains on, old habits stacked like sandbags. The kid studied himself in the bathroom mirror with the light off, because shadows tell the truth easy. 2 fingers to the sting spot, tender. 2 fingers to the navel, just a childhood scar turned inland. He slept in a way that wasn't truly sleeping and dreamed of ants that didn't touch him. They gathered to listen. Morning smelled like frying oil and sugar, trying to pass itself off as coffee. You know the rest in your bones. Knock on a door, no answer. Another door, a toilet running, a thump. The chain shifts on screws, and the door kisses tile, and there's a pastor on his knees praying to a God that has stepped into the next room. His belly moved once, twice. The skin at the navel blanched and ballooned, as if something inside wanted a window to open. It opened pretty, if you didn't know what pretty was. The sound was small, not a scream, more like a sigh that got lost on its way out. Whatever crawled free didn't stay to sign the guest book. Running doesn't fix a thing. They ran anyway. The hallway maid saw too much of the truth and dropped a tray like rain. Sirens didn't scream because sirens bring stories. Instead came 2 quiet vans and 6 people who'd learned to move without asking the air's permission. Field entomology wears a clean shirt to a dirty job. Dr. Mariela Cortez didn't waste eyes. She looked just long enough to convince her mind not to flinch, then started telling the room what it already knew. Rupture at the umbilical ring. Minimal peripheral hemorrhage. Abdominal cavity curated, not chaos, not gnawing. Sparing of high innervation tissue. That's a scientist's way of saying, this thing eats careful, so the lights don't come on until company's already downstairs. They found a sliver of what used to be. A larval cuticle clung to porcelain near a drain, like a whisper someone forgot to swallow. Under glass, the thing's hooks curved like sickles. It smelled faintly of nuts and cold fat, the way a slaughterhouse smells at dawn when the day hasn't decided how honest it wants to be. They took the village by helicopter that afternoon. Blades pressed the green into a circle, and the clearing that once wore laughter now wore a canvas tent and government faces. Cortez saw the same neat horror, the same tunnels of movement cutting through cracks, like a spider's job, but not a spider's hand. She said Pompilidae without blinking, tarantula hawk kinfolk. Wrong habitat creep? Maybe. Wrong prey? Absolutely. But evolution walks on whatever legs it's given, and sometimes it wanders into our kitchen. The team netted 2 adults in the city gutter, big as a man's thumb, matte black bodies with oil-slick wings. Strength in the thorax like a coiled spring. Ovipositor kept housed, telescoping out with a surgeon's confidence. If you squinted, the groove along the sting looked like engineering. A channel for venom meant to do more than hurt. No barbs. Barbs get you killed when hosts fight back. Smooth means in and out like a key in a well-oiled lock. Cortez listed it out to keep from thinking about it. Sting to neck, head. Venom, paralytic, neuroactive, wipes the tape. Oviposition via umbilicus, softest door, shortest path. Clutch 5 to 12. Parthenogenesis, yes. Gravid at birth. Don't need a husband to ruin a family. Larvae, anesthetic secretion. Feed on low-scream tissue first. Fat stores, mesentery, selected organ segments, spare vasculature. Keep the machine running till graduation day. Emergence, day 7 to 10. Catastrophic but controlled. Hosts, often upright until they're not. Adults, long-lived for a wasp. Multiple clutches, no swarms, no hives, just patient arithmetic. Rio didn't announce a quarantine. Cities don't like that word. They don't like any word that admits we're animals. Instead, the city exhaled different. Buses ran with windows down where they could, then closed them when whispers said to. Clinics taped fresh signs. Schools swapped open air for fans and tired prayers. People slapped their necks more and laughed less after. The team treated stings with a venom cocktail that tasted like hope and worked like a bandage on a broken dam. It calmed the burn. It didn't make eggs forget what they were born to do. The good news is they caught some early. The bad news is some never beats many in a first round. Bodies don't get less heavy the more you carry. A man folded quiet at a bus bench, plastic bag of greens beside his shoe. A woman in a clinic bathroom, lips pale, eyes still looking for a mirror to tell her she was fine. The nurse from the mission. She felt it coming and asked witnesses to stand in the room, shirt sleeve rolled up, voice steady. Witness matters. It doesn't fix. It matters. She bowed her head as if for a blessing, and the blessing never arrived. They did not feed the press. They fed nurses and bus drivers and janitors. Because if you want to stop a quiet monster, you hand the right folks a flashlight and a rule book. The rule book was plain. If you wake up on a floor you don't remember lying down on, report. If your neck's tender along the jawline and you weren't fighting last night, report. If your belly feels odd and you can't call it food, fever, or fear, report. If your navel looks different, stretched, swollen, tender, do not lie to yourself. Report. Teams walked hallways and sprayed crack lines with something that smelled like citrus in a bad mood. They sealed gaps where a thumb-sized thing might rest. They mapped places with still air. Shady bus stops, narrow hallways, cheap motel bathrooms with windows painted shut. You don't need to find them all. You just need to make life harder than opportunity. That's our tale for tonight. The fire's low and the dark is patient. Keep your eyes on that tree line, because something might be watching back.